The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And our main website that's going to be undergoing some great changes in the next couple of weeks at www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is psychic shaman Rai. He is a medium, medical intuitive, and healer. He also channels messages from the beings of light, ascended masters, and archangels. Shaman Rai is clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, and empathic, and he receives messages through sight, hearing, intuition, and experiencing them in his own body. His psychic ability allows him to see into the past, present, and future, and he provides information about those who are alive or deceased. He can see the condition of the body and identify the underlying physical or emotional issues. As appropriate, he brings in divine energies to initiate a physical, emotional, or spiritual healing process. Shaman Rai applies his broad range of knowledge and experiences in everything during his works, and his website is shamanrai.com, and that's SHAMANRAI.com. And Shaman Rai, welcome to the X-Zone, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Shaman Rai, what started you on your quest into the very many aspects of intuitive healing, psychic healing? You do so much. How does one person accomplish all this in one life, and what started you on your quest?
Well, I'm going to start with one of the points you made. How does one accomplish this all in one life?
Yes.
I don't believe I accomplished it in one life. I think much of my abilities was developed earlier in other lifetimes. I know from what I've seen that at one point I was a Himalayan monk. Mm-hmm. I know that I was here. I was in body during the time of Christ, and even before that. And I've been a rabbi. I've had many lifetimes that I'm aware of, and most of them had something to do with some kind of healing or connection with God or psychic abilities. And so I think this lifetime is just bringing all of those together. And as an example of that, I was once told before, many years ago, by a psychic that I actually came into this world being able to meditate, and that I meditated as a very young child. And I knew from a very young age things about my past lives, who I was, and so forth. And in fact, at the age of about 6, my mother's mother passed away. And while my mother was sitting mourning, I was sitting at her feet, and I felt my grandmother, come to me and be on my shoulder. And it was like she was saying goodbye to me at that time. And I actually, I've been married a couple of times, and my second wife, I told her that she was actually the reincarnation of that grandmother. She carried the very same energy that she did. But, in this life, I still had to develop and open up to all of these abilities. but I had this hunger for it. I went through a very strong period of time where I was seeking out knowledge about metaphysics and seeking out ways of meditating. And so I would do things like Plato had a beautiful story about, it's called Plato's Cave, and it talks about people sitting in a cave and the light coming behind them and seeing the shadow. I meditated on that very, very frequently. Dick Sutphin put out many videotapes on self-hypnosis, and I read most of his books and went on from there to many, many other books. But I had that hunger to meditate, and I one day I sat down in my living room to meditate, and my wife at the time came in and she started screaming, "What are you doing?" She had no sense of meditation, and that I had to put that away for a while.
Oh,
but I did come back to it. So, but I did come back to it, and it came back to me because I wanted to meditate, so I did meditate on my own once I could. And then one day, I was doing business in Chicago, and I went into a bookstore, and I got a telepathic message that said that there was a book there for me by an Indian, not Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who was the head of TM, Transcendental Meditation. I walked around the bookstore, and I found this one book with these eyes staring at me, and it was the autobiography of Paramahansa Yogananda, who is my guru and whose teachings I study.
Stand by, Shaman Rai. You and I have to take our commercial break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Exo Nation, Shaman Rai is our special guest, and we'll be back on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break as we continue here from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. The X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern on the X Zone Broadcast Network and our fine family of broadcast and satellite families around the world. Don't go away. Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com. Explanation, Shaman Rai is our special guest this hour, www.shamanrai.com. Shaman Rai, does everyone come equipped with the ability to be psychic or to communicate with the other side, or does it take a special person with a special talent?
I really do believe that we all have within our DNA the ability to do these things. But most of us have not awakened to it or activated it within ourselves, so we're not utilizing it. But I also believe that at this time, as the Earth's energy and vibration is rising, that more and more people are awakening to their abilities and becoming more telepathic and beginning to utilize these abilities. But a key element for all of that is to release the barriers, the blocks of energy from emotional upsets from this life and past life in order for them to truly utilize those abilities.
Now, Shaman Ray, before we were talking, and I touched briefly on past lives, and you said, I know in a past life. How do you know, sir?
Well, there are several things. First of all, like when I was a young child, it was like innate to me that I knew the name of who I was in another lifetime. I come from a Jewish background, and when the rabbi sat down, he couldn't give my English name a Hebrew version, and as it turned out, the Hebrew version he gave was the exact name of that earlier lifetime. So that's one part, but others are that I've received visions. There was a period back in the 90s when I was shown me as a Himalayan monk out there meditating. I was shown myself as a rabbi in a concentration camp, and also as a man in France who was killed on horseback in a battle. And so these so these resonate with me. And what's interesting for me is that certain of those things prove true in this lifetime. For example, when I was divorcing from my second wife, there was a woman in the town who I knew, and suddenly we felt a strong attraction to each other, and we planned to have a date. And so we were talking on the phone, and I told her that I had been a rabbi in a concentration camp in the last lifetime, and all of a sudden she's saying, oh my God, I'm getting chills up and down my spine. And she says, and I know that I was the wife of a rabbi in the concentration camp, and I get them up and down my spine. And we came together on a date, and afterwards I received many, many visions about the lifetimes that we had shared together.
I'm sure you've been asked.
There's validation.
Okay. When did your psychic abilities start, sir?
Gosh, well, there's that initial one of 6-year-old, and then I would receive many dreams, and those came probably when I was about 30 years old. That started to open up. But the full blast of it came after doing about 20 years of Yogananda's meditation, which is Kriya Yoga, which is used to remove karma, past karma from us. And then after clearing out other things that were there, then all of a sudden it all popped wide open. So once I cleared all the energy channels, that's when it really came into full bloom. But there's no rule about that. Everybody's going to be different about that.
So when you were a young person starting at the age of 6, what kind of psychic impressions would you get?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of funny ones, all right? Sure. I was in junior high school, and I had a girlfriend. It was really a girl that I was friends with, and at one time she was my girlfriend. She had gone away for the summer, and when she came home, we just got together, and we were walking, and she's telling me about, that she had visited this cousin, and she'd met this guy, and they hung out together, and all of a sudden, I saw her breast. I was able to see it, and see that, and I explained to her, well, I can see that he had been with you, giving her, sucking on her breast, let's say. That's just one. But I thought a better one was even better when I was in high school. We were hanging out. I grew up in New York, and we were hanging out by a candy store, and we were listening to the Mets game. And Willie Mays played center field for the Mets in those days. And all of a sudden, I say to my friends, oh, my God, he's going to do a triple play. Boom, the next second, Willie Mays caught the ball, and he caused a triple play. So those are some of the kind of fun kind of things that I picked up from people. Very often I would just pick up sensations. Mm-hmm. There was one time I was involved with a not-for-profit. I was the president of a not-for-profit in a community, and we were to award something to somebody who had helped us financially, who was in government, and she couldn't make it, so a replacement came. And we were running late, and he's in the back, and he's getting angrier and angrier and angrier. Finally, I call him out, and I walk close to him, and I almost bounce off of his energy. He was so angry, but I was able to feel all of that anger that was there. So it comes in various kinds of forms, is what I'm saying.
What's it like to talk to someone who's on the other side, who's passed?
Well, it's very interesting. First of all, there's no absolute one pattern as to how that takes place. But what I do find is that when they come through, very often they'll come through with a symbol that the person I'm talking to them for, mm-hmm. a child or a wife or whatever, that they'll recognize it. So, for example, one lady, we were doing a session, and she wanted to communicate to her father that she loved him and she knew he loved her. And he came through, and I see a man sitting with a hat by a river fishing. And I asked her, did your father ever fish? And she said, yes, in his younger days, he really loves fishing by the river. And so we knew that it was him. And then I would hear or feel the messages to give to each of them. In another case, a man lost his daughter in a car accident. And he wanted to test me to see if I could really communicate with her. And so he said, well, how did she die? And I said, well, and instantly I saw that the right side of the head, they showed me the skull of the right side of the head, and I said, well, she banged her right side of her head, and then they showed me her right hip, and he said, you're absolutely right, she bled to death by the femur. So that's how I know that I'm communicating properly with them. So sometimes I'll have to ask a clarifying question. But often it's, sometimes I'll hear the words come mm-hmm. through. Other times I won't even hear them. It'll just come right through my mouth and pass through and be communicated to the person.
Who are they that you mentioned? You said they showed me.
That's so great that you asked that, because I have to tell you, most of my clients ask me the same question. Before I went on the air, I said a prayer. Mm-hmm. And in that prayer, I called on God, Jesus, Mother Mary, archangels, ascended masters, all of them to come and be with me so that I could communicate what is for the highest good for the audience and what they want me to get through. So when I say they, it's all of these entities of high consciousness, high light.
So what is the hardest part about doing what you do? How do you deal with all the different emotions that you are subjected to when you do your healings, when you do your medium work, when you do your channeling? It must be hard on you.
Well, that's a really great question, because in the beginning, it was very, very hard. There would be times when, I would deal with somebody who mm-hmm. Who's been sexually abused, or, like the death of that girl in the car. And so what I had to learn to do was to put light around myself so that I was not taking on their emotions, and it would only be temporary. And then if I did have those emotions, I would have to go afterwards, and I would have to clear myself, run the light through, just the way I would run it through a client to heal them. I would run the light through myself in order to cleanse out any of these heavy vibrations. But it's an important thing to do so that it doesn't become part of me.
When you are dealing with the other side, are you putting yourself in any danger physically?
I don't consider it, because, well, the reason I say not is because I've called in all these beings of light before I've done a session. And so they're all protecting me. And my strongest supporter is Mother Mary. She's been with me from the very beginning, and she's done miraculous things for me. But all of these beings of light are there protecting me, so I don't really do that. Now, only once was I really called into somebody who had feelings that there was something wrong in their house, and when I looked at it, I saw these very dark entities, these creations that were dark, and at that point I had to really protect myself very, very strongly. So, but most of the time I'm not worried about it at all because I know I'm protected by God and the divine.
Is evil real?
That's such an interesting question. I don't believe evil is real, but what I have seen is these creations. You know, we do create it. People can, instead of living, the greatest evil, creation of evil is fear. And so we have created out of fear. I once had a person who was so afraid that she created a thought form in her body that was causing her illness. And yes, when you look outside at the world today with the fighting that's going on, it looks like there's evil out there. But in truth, we're all players on a stage, and we're playing certain roles. And so there's really nothing at all to be afraid of. Evil, one of the trainings from Yogananda is evil is not real, basically. And all that is real is love. And that's the space that I stay in a space of love.
All right, stand by, Shaman Rai. We have to take our commercial break here with the news at the bottom of the hour. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Shaman Rai is our special guest. His website is www.shamanrai.com. That's SHAMANRAI.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue our conversation with Shaman Rai right here on the X Zone. Don't go away. Hi, this is Rob McConnell, just letting you know that the X Chronicles newspaper is now available online at www.xzonebookclub.com. All past editions and current editions of the X Chronicles newspaper are available for 99 cents. That's www.xzonebookclub.com, and that's 99 cents US per edition. And don't forget, the X Zone store is now open as well for all of your X Zone Nation merchandise. www.thexzonestore.com.
Do you have a dis-ease that you would like to alleviate through a natural means? Have you been contacted by angels, ghosts, or even extraterrestrials and want to validate these experiences? Or would you simply like to speak with someone who can help you find your life's purpose? I'm Dr. Joseph Mara, and I'm offering my services free of charge for first-time clients contacting me during the month of April. These free consultations include angel card readings, guided meditations, life coaching, and energy healing. If you have always wanted to explore these types of experiences but were skeptical or simply could not afford them, then take advantage of this free special offer. Contact me through my website, aguidinglight, spelled LITE.com, to schedule your consultation today. Until then, I offer you love, light, and laughter.
Welcome back, everyone. Shaman Rai is our special guest, www.shamanrai.com. You're also a medical intuitive, Shaman Rai. How did you develop that ability?
with all of these abilities, it's almost like the divine put things in my space for me to respond to, so that I would know to utilize the ability. And so, like first came the visions and being able to talk to the other side. The medical intuitive, all of a sudden, somebody that I knew was having pain in her ear. And she said, could you take a look at this and just see what it is? And I'd never done this before. So I looked in her ear, and all of a sudden I was able to see all the way through the channels of her ear, and I could see that there was nothing wrong with it. Or another time, right around there, I was giving a session, a group reading for Earth Day, and it was raining outside, and one of the vendors was loading her truck, and she slipped, and I was called immediately to come out. I ran Reiki energy on her to keep the swelling down, and as I did it, all of a sudden I could see right into her ankle. So it's not like something that I have to consciously do. It's my consciousness is able to go into any dimension, go into past, present, future. It's able to go into the body, and I'm just able to see them. And it's not like I require any special training. It's just that the consciousness is able to move in the direction and be guided by my higher self in order to do that. Today I was doing a session with a lady, and all of a sudden I started feeling a pain in my solar plexus area. And I asked her, do you ever feel pain in that area? And she says, yes, and sometimes it actually twitches. So I'm able to feel it and see it and experience it. And what I did for her was I then brought the light in, and I sent energy through my hands in order to relieve some of the pressure. And the goal for her actually was to help her release some of the painful memories she had from her childhood that she was still living under in present-day relationships.
Before we went to the news break, you said that we're all players and we all have roles to play. Who gives us this script?
We choose it before we come into the earth. We decide how, there's a certain plan that we put together for our lives, usually with our higher self or our guides, for certain life experiences. And part of that life experience is for us over the millennium to play sometimes the good guys and sometimes to play the dark half. So we've all been on both sides of the fence over the lifetimes.
Why?
We've participated in doing that.
Why do we keep coming back?
Well, we may not be doing that much longer. We're at the point in time now where that is no longer necessary. Why we came back before, there are many different answers to that question. Part of it was that, and this will get into a whole other area, but some of us actually came into this planet when it was first being created as the ideal planet in the universe. And we came from many different planets at that time. And we agreed to stay here and help the planet evolve. And some of us, basically, we took on karma during those different lifetimes, and we had to work out those experiences over lifetime and lifetime in order to be fully evolved in our experiences. So, but now, luckily, we've reached a point where we're in a whole other path, which is basically that we are evolving from carbon-based into light beings, and we're going to be able to ascend into a higher vibration than what we've had here on the earth.
When you were a little boy, what did you want to be? Did you want to be a fireman? Did you want to be an astronaut? Did you want to be a doctor? Did you want to be a policeman? Or did you know that your fate was in the spiritual realm?
Well, in a way, I knew it was in the spiritual realm, but not in the way that I am now. The first thing that I wanted to be was a rabbi. And what I realized was, after I realized that I had been a rabbi in the last life, I realized that was a continuation of that life. And so I had given that up at a certain point. And actually, my mother wanted me to become a physician, which I rebelled against. So I always had a little inkling I always had a close connection to God. That was absolute. I mean, I was the junior cantor at the temple and led services for the children and all of that. So I always had that very strong devotion to God. I never knew that it was going to go quite this way.
Having been brought up in the Hebrew religion, how did Mother Mary come to be so important to you?
Well,
because isn't that a crossover in religious philosophies from Judaism to Catholicism?
I don't consider it. I consider they're both from the same, because if we, they were both, Mother Mary and Jesus were Essenes, which were part of the Jewish community at that time, and so they come from the same root.
Okay.
And again, how things are brought to you and come to you. My best friend growing up in elementary school was Ronnie Ferrara, a good Catholic, and we would have these wonderful conversations about religion. And my cousin and I would study all of the religions, and so I just knew it. And when I started meditating with using Yogananda's methodology. One of the first things that happened in the room was, all of a sudden there was a smell of roses in the room. And that's the signal that Mother Mary is there. But she helped me even more later on. My heart, because of the things I went through in my life, was, like all of us do, was very, very closed. And Yogananda and Mother Mary had teamed up to open my heart chakra. One day, even though Yogananda is not embodied, by the way, he hasn't been embodied since 52, I was looking at a photograph of his when I was in L.A. at a convocation, and he blasted me with a ray of light energy in my heart that knocked me against the pole, and it began the process of opening my heart. Then one day I was sent to Italy on a project, and I encountered this feeling of great love coming from a woman, and I went across the street from my hotel to the Cathedral Duomo, and I sat down and I demanded to know who she was. And I was shown a vision of a woman in white habit carrying a sword and a scepter, and I knew that that was Mother Mary who was there, and she finished the job of opening my heart. When I do soul retrieval work, which is a very basic shamanic technique that all of a sudden I knew how to do, Mother Mary and Archangel Raphael come, and Mother Mary lifts the soul of the person who had been stuck in another time period, maybe because they were raped or something, and Mother Mary holds that soul, and Archangel Raphael is there protecting her, and she taught me how to do that just by her presence, and I know to use that technique every time she signals her presence. So I don't consider it, we're all one. That's the other thing. I mean, to me, there is no difference in one human to another. We all come from God. We all have God within us, and the philosophies that carry are interesting philosophies of religion, but those don't define us.
What is the significance of the sword and the scepter when you saw Mother Mary?
To me, it meant that she was a soldier of Christ. That's how I saw that. That was the interpretation that came to me. And the pure white that she wore was another sign that it was Mother Mary, but that she was a soldier of Christ. That's who I am.
Tell me about the beings of light.
Well, the beings of light are, there's so many, but let's talk about the archangels. I remember seeing the archangels as they appeared over various people's heads. And one that is very close to me is Archangel Michael. And I saw him when I sat down, and I saw his sword hold over my head. And the funny thing is, I then went into a room where somebody dropped all of a sudden, as I got there, dropped a deck of spiritual cards with archangels and masters on it, and I said, "Don't touch that deck." And once I got there, she opened it, and it was Archangel's card that was the key card that was there. He's always with me and there. So Archangel Michael will come, and he also came to me early on in my meditation time. The beings of light are all highly evolved, and think of everything as energy. That's all we are, is energy, consciousness. And so we vibrate at a certain level. We have a certain level of consciousness here in the earth as we've developed. These other beings, like ascended masters and archangels and Ramakrishna, Buddha, and so forth, they've evolved their consciousness to a much higher level, to a higher vibration, so that they're able to see and understand things from a very different perspective. And so we can call in all of these beings of light to assist us and protect us. And that's, and all of us are capable of doing all of those kind of things. So, when you talk about ascended masters, most of the ascended masters that I'm talking about, like Ascended Master Kasumi, he was St. Francis, and he evolved into this higher being of consciousness. And El Moyer, who was, he had so many lives. He was Abraham, and he was for God in so many ways. And Saint Germain, who's playing such an important role today in our world in raising us up. He helped with the French Revolution and the American Revolution and our Declaration of Independence. So they played important roles in our world, and eventually they were raised up. Even my Paramahansa Yogananda, my guru, he is now an ascended master. So it's a difference of consciousness and vibration that we're talking about that these beings of light are operating at.
I understand you've also had experiences with those from other planets.
Oh, yeah. That started really early. Probably when I was about in 6th grade, I had an experience where I was in bed, but I could not move. I was stiff and stuck. I could think, and I was trying to scream. And I guess my brother went and got my parents because he could see something was strange, and my parents came to the door, and just as they came to the door, I was unfrozen. Shortly after that, I noticed that there was like a lump on the left side of my head, which has always been there. I spoke a while back to the former president of the UFO organization and told him, and they said, "I think I was abducted," and he said, "You were," by that pattern that I gave him. Well, years after that, when I was an adult, I was living upstate in New York, and as I was lying in bed, 3 beings from another planet came into the room, stood at the foot of my bed. And then on another occasion, 3 more came in, and I had injured my left shoulder playing sports, and one of them actually put his arm into my shoulder, felt around there, and telepathically said to the others, "It's not healing." Those are the kinds of personal ones I've had. But more recently, I've communicated through meditation with beings who are here to protect us, to protect our planet, and to help us in the evolution of the planet. And one time I actually went on the deck, I guess you would call it, of one of the ships. Another time I just went up, and my consciousness was there with one man in like a torpedo boat, you might think of, but he told me he was cruising around to protect us from any archons coming into the planet area at this time. So those are some of them. So these are I know that we have other beings in other worlds, and we'll probably hear about that pretty shortly from our governments.
What did the alien visitors look like?
The ones that I saw when I was younger, some people say that they were grays. I don't know if they were grays or not. They did have that kind of face, and as I remember them, they were kind of green. The one, when I went on the ship deck more recently, what was interesting is at one point I spoke to what was a robot who was on the deck, And another one was, his name is Seleucia. Seleucia is from the planet Sirius, and he's the commander of the ship. And he took the form. They can basically take any form, but he took the form more of a human than anything else. Remember, many of these beings don't have to have physical bodies that look like ours, but they're quite capable of changing form into something that we're comfortable with.
All right, stand by, Shaman Rai. We've got to take our final break for this hour, but when we come back, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about these visitors and what their mission is. Exonation, Shaman Rai is our special guest, www.shamanrai.com. That's ShamanRai.com. And Shaman Rai and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. Hi, this is Rob McConnell, just letting you know that the X Chronicles newspaper is now available online at www.xzonebookclub.com. All past editions and current editions of the X Chronicles newspaper are available for 99 cents. That's www.xzonebookclub.com, and that's 99 cents US per edition. And don't forget, the X Zone store is now open as well for all of your X Zone Nation merchandise. www.thexzonestore.com. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Shaman Rai, maybe you can answer a question for me that I've often thought about when I've had the opportunity of speaking to people who have had the experience of not only meeting with, communicating with, but actually going on various vessels that these visitors from other planets come to this planet to visit us in. Why don't they intercede and stop the wars, stop the diseases, stop the droughts, stop the hatred that this planet is in? I understand that so many people say, well, they can't interfere. But if they can't interfere, what use are they?
Well, first of all, the reason they can't interfere is they can't interfere in a certain way. Mm-hmm. This is a free will planet. So it has to be that we express our will, and it's only because we have been asking for help at various levels, that they are coming in. Now, one thing that they have done, and it was done quite a while ago, you'll notice that even though they may talk about nuclear war, mm-hmm. nobody is popping off any nuclear weapons. That's because, by the decree of God, they were told to stop all nuclear weapons and they have neutralized all nuclear weapons on this planet. They are prepared to get rid of disease and change the economic system and all of that. Things are about to unroll probably within the next 6 months. And the beings from the other planets and the light beings and all of them are mm-hmm. working on doing this. So part of the work of the ships has been making themselves people aware of them. You can check YouTube and you'll see plenty of videos of ships that are around the Earth. That's because they wanted people to know about it before full disclosure, which is going to come soon. And so they are working for our highest good, and we just don't know, and we won't know until after disclosure and until Nisara is declared and things are shifted, just the role that they really played. But I can tell you, just from the things that I saw, they have been around this planet protecting us from Anunnaki and others who might still, and Archons in particular, who might still want to cause trouble here, and they're not able to get in because there are so many ships protecting us. Are the visitors of today the angels of days gone by? You know, I don't believe so. I think it's a different, completely. And in fact, I do believe that many of the angels that we see are mm-hmm. actually us in another dimension, because we exist in so many different dimensions, and so we can actually be an angel at the same time that we're down here in the earth plane.
If we have angels, why do we need alien protectors? And if we have alien protectors, why do we need angels?
I think each of them has their own role and capability, mm-hmm. so that our alien protectors are able to keep away the other alien ships in a kind of a physical kind of way. Right. But the beings of light, the archangels, are operating in a completely different way than those from other planets, and that's the best I can do to explain it.
All right. I want to thank you so much for joining us, Shaman Rai. Take care of yourself. I look forward to the next time you meet us here in the X Zone. So until then, be well.
Thank you. Look forward to it also.
Take care, sir. Exonation Shaman Rai has been our guest. www.shamanrai.com. That's www.shamanrai.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.